delves into one critical aspect of whatever digital transformation we talk about, that's on security, around security. So this is a panel discussion. The topic is ensuring secure and cyber resilient digitization of organizations. And we have important cyber security decision makers from large enterprises who will take us through their cybersecurity journey in their organizations and how they are sort of achieving the resilience. So it's my pleasure to call on stage the panelists for this. Dr. Mahesh Kumar, Senior Vice President and Head IT Infrastructure and Security at Maruti Suzuki, India. Warm applause for Dr. Mahesh Kumar. Can we have on stage Amal Krishna, CDTO and CISO of ONGC, Oil and Natural Gas Commission. The lady on the discussion, Ms. Neha Taneja, SGM and CISO at Hero MotoCorp. Next, can we have on stage Commander Sanjeev Singh, CISO and Data Protection Officer, Birlasoft.
Wait. So I take
Alok Shankar Pandey, Additional General Manager, IT and CISO at Dedicated Freight Corridor of India. Mr. Baidyanath Kumar, CISO and Data Protection Officer at JK Lakshmi Cement, is on his way, stuck in traffic. He will be joining in 5 minutes and he will join in the discussion at that time. We will, in the meantime, we will start with the other panelists. And since one important part of the topic today is around cyber resilience, and while this term cyber resilience is being bandied about quite frequently and widely in the IT circles. What I would like to start first with Dr. Mahesh Kumar is what are the parameters on which you can measure the cyber resilience of an organization, and coming from a large auto organization, one of the premier auto organizations in the country, how do you measure these cyber resilience? What are these parameters?
Yeah, sure. So, am I audible?
Yes.
Okay. So, whatever can be measured can be improved, is the saying. But yeah, cyber resilience is a bit tricky issue. But how we tackle it in our organization is that there are, of course, some tactical parameters which we speak about, which can be, mean time to identify something which goes wrong, or mean time to respond. But apart from the tactical parameters, it is important to assess ourselves or benchmark ourselves with certain industry benchmarks. So how we look at it is that one is outside in view. So where we can look at, of course, certain industry assessments which are available, and we can benchmark against them. And then there is an inside-out view. The inside-out view is that we assess ourselves again on the internal maturity parameters with respect to the processes, tools, technologies that we have. And these two views, the outside in view and the inside out view, we quantify and do a PDCA kind of a cycle to continuously improve the posture, the cybersecurity posture that we have.
Okay, thanks. So I'll come to you, Mr. Amal Krishna, with the same question again. The parameters of measuring cyber resilience in an organization, from your perspective, how will you do that?
Yeah, so as it's very obvious nowadays that There's nothing called foolproof security. So from that perspective, what you can do is how fast you can bounce back if you're hit. So from that perspective, there are certain things that we can do and that we do which can improve this bounce back time. Number one is get early indicators, get early warnings. So for that, best way and best place to be in the lookout is on the dark web. So you can have deployed tools, or you can have techniques in place which monitors dark webs where there are whispers going on an attack or a recce being done. So there you come to know that, okay, there is something planned and you can be more alert. It's also important that we continuously upgrade our security technologies, the tools that we have. Newer things are coming up, whether it's Zero Trust or whether it's SASE or any other tools that we have, that is a continuous thing that has to be done.
Okay.
Lastly, one thing that is very important is the user being on the lookout, be it the security guys or be it in the end users. If they are aware, if they are properly on the lookout for first few signs of something going wrong somewhere, some malicious behavior, some anomalous behavior, then we have the capability of bouncing back. So that helps us.
Okay, thanks. Thanks. So for that, Neha, Taneja, I'll come to you next. And slightly different question from another large automobile organization perspective. How are you looking to mitigate the challenges from different kind of ransomware attacks or the denial of service attacks, which are prevalent? So how do you sort of build that framework or devise the policies which can help mitigate some of these challenges?
So, drawing in from, I think the perspective was already brought in when we talked about mean time to detect and mean time to respond. So that is one of the major parameters. So in terms of a security framework, what we follow is around prevent, detect, and respond. Now, coming specific to ransomware, one thing where one can, work more on, while prevention is something where the user education and the phishing drills and all those things come into play, that how do you educate users from the prevention on the prevention part of it, how your vulnerability management metrics are in place. But there is one thing which from industry perspective could be a more of a where there could be more emphasis could be on having ransomware kind of response simulations in any organization. So when the teams are trained how to respond, should God forbid should there be a ransomware, so that is how one is more equipped to handle this. How does one recover and respond, and that adds on to the cyber resiliency posture. Having said that, the governance around all the cyber security metrics, be it around vulnerability management, be it around threat detection, be it around the SOC metrics, all these things contribute overall to strengthen the prevent, detect, and respond overall as a framework.
Okay, so the focus is on the different response matrices and how they can sort of help in mitigating some of the challenges. Sanjeev Singh, I'll come to you next in terms of your word from the different panelists. One is your views on how would you measure cyber resilience in your organization?
So, hi, for us, or for me particularly, resilience means two things. One is how resilient you are to an attack, and second, how fast you can recover post an attack. I think the second part was already covered. And we also heard some tactical metrics that we can use to hopefully improve upon that aspect. I also read a great article from World Economic Forum that was, I think, back in 2022 when they prepared the annual report, where they did talk about cyber security versus cyber resilience and how cyber security is maturing into cyber resilience. Security is mostly technical. Resilience is more business focused because the moment you talk about resilience, of course, it is all about business continuity. So talking about the first part, the resilience part, right? How resilient you are to an attack. Again, remember, attacks are either we are targets of opportunities, which is some new vulnerability has been found out, some new zero day has been found out. We may have stuff hanging on the internet, which is carrying that vulnerability. And moment those things are leaked, attackers are out there scanning the entire internet. It's become very easy nowadays. And then they launch the attack. You may not have been on their target, but just because your vendor or partner did not do their job properly, now you're susceptible to attack. So these, I would say, are your attack surface or exposure surfaces. So one good metric that we follow, and I found it to be particularly useful, is something called an exposure score. Depends upon kind of product or solution you're using, and try and maintain the exposure score as low as possible. These would be typically part of, say, vulnerability management systems or attack surface management systems, etc. And keeping a low exposure score, thankfully, has worked for us so far. So that is one part of the story. The second, of course, is nothing is 100%, so you may still get attacked. When that happens, how fast you can recover. And that is where the RTOs and RPOs define for particular applications or services that may be critical for you. Again, something to remember is large enterprises like the panelists sitting here, you can't protect everything. It's just too huge an infrastructure to protect. So knowing what is critical from a business resilience perspective, the crown jewels, so to say, and then ensure that those are identified, the RPOs, RTOs for those are identified, the disaster recovery plans for those are identified. And that can help, that as a metric can help, again, to plan for and have a very quantitative measure of how resilient we are as an organization.
Okay, thanks. Thanks. So the quantitative measure of resilience is another important aspect touched upon by Sanjeev Singh from Birlasoft. Alok, I'll come to you next in terms of your views on how would you measure how resilient an organization is, and how would you like to, or what approach would you take to mitigate the kind of denial of service attacks?
Thank you, Rajneesh, for that wonderful question, and as well giving this opportunity to address the fora today. Before I address your question proper, disclaimer, all views expressed are personal. It has no impact on any organization that I've served either in the past or present. Now coming to how do I approach cybersecurity and measure it. There are defined parameters, as I said, tactical parameters which have been touched upon, RPO, RTO, etc., etc. Two things that I personally lay emphasis on is having cyber crisis management plans and rehearsing them. So if you have your cyber crisis management plans well rehearsed, your cyber drills rehearsed, you have actually catered for contingencies. Not all will be catered for, but all those that you have envisaged, those contingencies you have catered for, and the relevant critical portion and the people have been educated, and the whole plan has been played over and over again, or on a periodic basis you keep doing it. So that gives you a very high degree of resilience in case of an attack. Now coming to the second part of your question, which is prevention of DDoS, etc. One of the key indicators of DDoS is probably catching people at the reconnaissance stage when things just begin to, things are just building up. Technical solutions, anti-DDoS protections you can have, that's from the ISP also, or you can deploy your own. That's a technical solution. But if you are able to pick up signs of things that are going to come towards you, it helps you prepare better to be able to mitigate them. And I would want to draw a linkage to what I have been doing throughout in my life, which was warfare, where you always put up the basics of warfare and cyber warfare remain the same. You have to have someone sitting ahead, listening. We used to call it observation post at that time, and listening post. So listening and seeing what is happening, you come to know which direction the enemy is coming, what is the approach that the enemy is taking. And second, you do contingencies. We build contingencies for every kind of envisaged scenario, which helps you address the cyber resilience part of it. Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks, Alok. So we have heard one round from each of the panelists, and I would like to have the opinion of each of you on the next round on a very important aspect. As cybersecurity leaders, you are responsible for sort of even creating the framework, cybersecurity framework in your organization, and sort of imbibing the culture which employees related to sort of mitigate the challenges of cybersecurity they should follow in an organization. But how are, as CISOs, you are integrating with the other business leaders to have that proper business environment, agile business environment, where that level of awareness is sort of uniform across the organization? Starting with you, Mahesh Kumar, your views on integrating with other business leaders.
Yeah. So, like any other survey, cyber, which is part of, it is a part of business continuity and assurance to the business. So, yes, it is very important to involve all stakeholders in the organization. And let us take it as a view. We as an automotive company, we've got internal functions, functions which are looking at the internal efficiencies. Then there are functions which are also catering to our partners. For example, in our case, it will be suppliers, a huge number of them. It will be our distribution partners, again, a huge number of them. For us, it becomes important to cater to whole value chain. So if anything goes wrong, we are out of business. So now with that background, coming to that question that how do we engage? So we have to understand the business, and then with each of the business leaders, we will have to discuss with them about their continuity, their challenges, and how their business function, gets impacted by any kind of disruption which may happen because of any kind of cyber disruption. That brings in that engagement, automatically. For example, we work with, suppliers, all of them, in a regimented way, to work with them to assess where do we stand. We work with our dealer partners. Internally, we work with them to identify the kind of critical assets or information that they may have to categorize it. We also work with them to publish a scorecard around the awareness levels within those functions with respect to the various aspects of cybersecurity, the individual users, their role in overall cybersecurity framework. So it's a facet kind of an engagement which we work with. It is a continuous engagement as part of overall IT service delivery.
Okay, thanks. So I'll just break in between. We have with us Mr. Baidyanath Kumar, CISO and Data Protection Officer, JK Lakshmi Cement. So I would request you to join on stage. And just for your information, we had one round of question, and maybe before we continue the second round, I'll put that question to you. I had put it to earlier to the other panelists. One, what are the measures by which you the parameters by which you measure the cyber resilience of an organization, and how do you mitigate the DDoS challenges that our organizations are facing today?
Yeah, I think two questions combined together. Hope I'm clearly audible. So when we talk about the cyber resilience of any organization, it is very important to understand how your security controls or cybersecurity countermeasures are developed around the 5 principles of NIST CSF framework, be it identify, protect, then detect, respond, and recover. So when we talk about cyber resilience, it is important to know the complete threat landscape, whatever the security safeguards and controls you have developed as part of technical controls to prevent the cyber attacks. Then when it comes to detect, right? So how matured your cybersecurity SOC practices are there, right? How you are detecting incidents, how you are going to triage the incidents. All those things are very important parameter. And responding is also a very key important element when we talk about the resilience. That these days the way attackers are targeting to you, right? In terms of complexity and sophistication, important is that how our automated responses are there, right? So the implementation of your automated responses in terms of SOAR practices and all those things are important. And in case if something goes wrong also, right, after all the controls in place, right, be it your proactive preventive controls, detective controls, and remediation, what about, are you ready to withstand to those challenges where you are getting breached also? So how quickly you can recover and respond using your incident response mechanism. So those things are fundamentally very important. When it comes to attacks in terms of DOS and DDoS, so organizations need to understand the differences between the different levels of DDoS attacks or DOS attacks, be it volumetric at network layer, be it TCP state exhaustion attacks, or the application level attacks. And then you have to put right set of controls at the right places, right? And if you are able to segregate those all and balancing those all attacks at the application level, at the network level, to protect against volumetric DDoS, which are just targeting you to make you unavailable, your services unavailable. So those all things are very important, these controls, when we talk about DDoS attacks. And overall resilience is something which we are always talking, right? These days we are not talking about the cyber posture, maturity. The term itself got redefined. The way we are looking into the business, right? We talk about the resilience in business. That's same way resilience in cyber security also. Because no matter the controls are effective, you are getting targeted. How quickly you are going to withstand to those challenges and recover, that is that most priority these days.
Okay, thanks. So basically for the resilience part that you are mentioning, the response mechanism and sort of having a set time frame for that response mechanism, that is critical. And for the DOS or the DDoS kind of attacks, identifying the different layers of security and having then set up the relevant controls at those different levels become important. Thanks to Baidyanath for that. So coming back to the second round, which we were going, and we had response from Mahesh on that. Basically, the relation the CISOs or the cybersecurity leaders have with the business leaders of the organization, the business units, and how do you inculcate that culture of cybersecurity within and emphasize the sort of the importance and relevance of cybersecurity in the organization to the business leaders. So, Mr. Amal Krishna, I'll come to you next with that, your views on that.
Yeah, so I would like to start with we being a critical sector. From the cybersecurity perspective, there are a lot of regulations and guidelines that we have to follow. So from that perspective, traditionally, businesses used to see cybersecurity as a necessary kind of obstacle. Now, with the more proactive role of the CISO and interactions between business, CISO's role has become more like an enabler. If a business wants to do something, there's one thing that it wants to do something. With the help of CISO, it is able to do it safely. So that assurance and that comfort level that CISO provides to them, that has resulted in a lot of initiatives being taken up, which if we would have gone the normal way would not have been allowed by the government also. But because some innovation and some things we could do, like if for data analytics we have to take something to the cloud, or connecting OT to the cloud is a strict no-no. But we went for a deferred life kind of scenario with an intermediate server and things like that. And we were able to achieve our objective without the cybersecurity threats and things like that. So from that perspective, it is very important that the CISO continuously interacts with the business. Incidentally, in my case, I am also the Chief Digital Officer. so responsible for the digital transformation within the company. So from that perspective, I am looking at both sides of the coin in some things. And like there was a mention of DevSecOps. So for digital things, we are doing it right at the design stage. That is the advantage I have got. And because I am directly reporting to the board also, from so many aspects, things are much easier to take forward, with be it in the cyber security perspective or be it in the digital arena, which has a tone of cyber security built in it. That.
Okay, thanks. Being in your position, perhaps you are in a better situation to address the synergy or alignment between the cybersecurity and the business decision makers within the organization. Next, I'll come to you, Neha, Taneja. In an organization like Hero MotoCorp, a manufacturing automobile setup like that, how challenging it is to sort of bring all the business leaders onto the same page in terms of security level, and so that they follow in their LBUs similar policies.
So I won't say that the first part of the challenge where cybersecurity is considered as an obstacle exists in our organization. In fact, the way it is now, secure by design as a methodology or as is more prevalent, and there's more acceptance of secure by design, where we have even toll gates for cybersecurity sign off tied up to the product lifecycle processes. We have architecture review both sign off. Those kind of things have been conceptualized and are pretty much operational. Having said that, there is a lot of acceptance and importance when it comes to the operational technology cybersecurity. So that kind of ties back to the overall prevent, detect, and respond framework, which I brought up earlier. And then on the drills part of it, we spoke about how strong we can assess our resiliences through the drills. So in the drills part of it also, we have a close calibration where we have the CRO coming in, the business representation coming in, participating in those tabletop exercises. So the entire part, when you say secure by design, how early during the design stage you identify your gaps, and having the sponsorship and partnership with especially the enterprise risk management overall helps to navigate comparatively in a structured manner.
Oh, thanks. Wonderful. And again, rightly pointed out in terms of the business process leaders to bring them on the same page and align them with the cybersecurity personnel. We'll touch upon the aspect which you mentioned at the beginning, that cybersecurity itself, deployment is looked at as an obstacle by many of the business leaders. Maybe we'll discuss in the later part in this discussion in slightly more detail on that. Sanjeev, your view on alignment with the business leaders.
I'll start from what Neha was talking about. I think the first part, the obstacle part, a lot of blame has to go to the CISO community, because the easiest thing for us is to say no to anything business. And that doesn't gel well. The moment we turn around to become problem solvers, a friend, and move from adversarial relationship with business to a more friendly approach, when business starts to say, yeah, this guy or this person helps to solve the problem, that is where the relationship starts to change, I think. Fortunately for me, my best friends are the people who own the business. Because as CISOs, again, we don't own any function or process. We are always working for somebody else's process. Owners could be HR, business, IT, etc. Of course, IT is something that we work very, very closely with typically. And as long as IT sees you as a person who says no, they're going to start hiding things from you, which is not good for business at all. And so the only way is to start not saying no and say, let's find out a solution which meets your requirement, but also meets the requirement of security. And as my co-panelist was saying rightfully, there are always ways to do things. It's not, the world is not black and white. You can always find solutions that meets both the objective of a secure deployment of a business function or a tool or a solution, whatever that's the case may be. And I think a more proactive, more collaborative approach from the security teams and the security community towards the business is going to help that. Today, for example, in my organization, thankfully, those business functions and owners, they reach out on their own, even if we don't know what's happening, and say, hey, I'm planning to do this. Can you guys have a look at it and tell me if it is secure or help me secure it? Which is, I think, what the end state should be.
Okay. Then I must say you are lucky in that aspect. Maybe perhaps being from an IT services organization, which is more technologically advanced. In fact, we have a rather esoteric set of panel representing, we have Maruti and Hero MotoCorp, two of the largest premier automobile makers of the country. We have JK Lakshmi Cement, which is one of the largest cement. We have two large PSUs, ONGC and Dedicated Freight Corridor, and we have one of the largest IT services companies. So it can be as esoteric, if I may say, and varied panel as possible. Alok, your view on alignment with the business leaders.
I think I'll pick up from where Commander Sanjeev left. And it's quite right, with the C-suite expanding and expanding exponentially, kind of earlier having only business as stakeholder in the C-suite and the CEO. You now have a CIO, a CISO, a CRO, a CDO, a CPO. You don't know where it goes. And everyone vying for his own stake in the industry, in the organization, and their stake and say. And the worst is probably yet to come when the CDOs, CROs and CPOs start exercising, doing the same thing that CISOs have done in the past, scare people. ये नहीं करोगे तो ये हो जाएगा. And the solution that I personally have seen or has worked for me is, even with the most adamant people and the most adamant CEOs, is the ransomware itself. When it hits your bottom line, it hurts. You first become accountable, even if you were very lackadaisical towards cybersecurity earlier, and you start seeking accountability also. So ransomware, as far as I have been maintaining periodically on multiple forums, is a boon for the CISO. And second is, earlier it used to be a round of golf, now it is a cup of tea. If you can walk up to your stakeholder's office and have a cup of tea with him, with the ransomware in the background, the CEO asking, the person in front is actually approaching you from the front and says, okay, here is what I intend to do. And you know, there's this guy on the lookout for me to somehow extort money from me. So please help me. First, remain safe. Second, ensure business continuity. Because at the end of the day, his business gets affected. So now he's more willing to partner with me. And that is how, again, the two takeaways for me are the ransomware and cup of tea.
Okay. So basically, you are talking about getting a buying in, whatever way tactically you use that method, but a sort of buying in from the end. Obviously, we have these plethora of designations and maybe different facets of digitization they are performing, but yes, having the clarity of roles is imperative here. Baidyanath, your views on this?
Yeah, so you just talked about that clarity of the role, right? So obviously, when we as CISOs, we think about our designation, that becomes a problem because we have to be a business enabler. And then the way even Commander Sanjeev Singh and Mr. Alok said, that is very pertinent because in the boardroom discussions, even my CEO, CFO wants how I'm going to help into the business development as a security leader. Today itself, before coming to this panel discussion, I was having a discussion with all the HODs on the data protection and helping with them. But in case of manufacturing context, let me put you a very pertinent example. When you go to talk to your manufacturing team, basically the team who is dealing with operational technologies, right? And so they see you as a threat because they understand that this is something our job is to keep the lights on. Why the security personnel is coming to my domain and guiding me that, okay, there should be some EDR on the machines or security should be there, because they think that the system is completely air gapped. Now, here comes the importance of a CISO to talk to them in a friendly manner and let them understand that when you are going to integrate with IT systems, the systems are going to be exposed. There is no concept of air gapping after Industry 4.0 and Industry 5.0. And that's the problem solving approach I am having with my OT teams. So the approach is that they are now approaching that, sir, kaise hoga ye connectivity and all. You make me enable to connect my OT systems to IT systems so that I can send my reports to all the OEMs. They can do remote access freely and help us to do the process optimization. And when the process optimization works, who is happy? Finally, the board and the CEO, because they are looking into the real-time insights of the production, data, and all those analytics, which is helping them to how we are going to plan for the next 2 years. Just because Industry 4.0, something not on the talk, actually in the execution when you are connecting all these systems, and that is very pertinent. So you have to be business in short.
Thanks. So one important thing which has come out from your session, your talk, and also I think Neha also mentioned that is the IT and the OT part. One, keeping the IT and OT separate, and more importantly, the way maybe the level of security in the IT is much higher than the OT part. And it's such an important topic that I'm not delving too much into this here, because we have a separate panel discussion today specifically on the OT security, where some other set of CISOs are also participating. But maybe at the end, I'll briefly touch, since it's such a relevant thing. I'll start again from Mahesh. Now, the important point is, we touched upon this, this compromising the way many of the businesses have looked at cybersecurity always as that offhand, if I may say, just very crudely say, it has no value offhand. In terms of direct benefit, measurable benefits, they are not seeing. But as a CISO now, when for an organization like Maruti, you are sort of designing their cybersecurity roadmap, but at the same time, how are you ensuring, one, there is no compromise on performance and productivity, because that will be suicidal for a business like yours. At the same time, having that high level of cybersecurity, how that balance in compromise, so that there is no compromise that happens? How are you doing it?
So I think my first response to your comment that security is seen as something not so value adding, but thanks to the awareness which has been created, actually I think that is not the case. In fact, it is overboarding to the other side, that it sometimes I'll not say half information, but when I am not in control of the accelerator, sitting at the back and I know driving, it still makes me comfortable. I know the subject, but for the people who don't know the subject, but they are made aware about the happenings around, they ask more questions. So that's
an excellent analogy.
But coming to your point that how to maintain a balance, actually I never saw, and I think other co-panelists also mentioned, that we are business people. We are not purely IT or technical people. So whenever we define a solution, or we think of a solution, we take care of end-to-end the business agility, business impact. So this question actually has never arisen that security is causing hindrance. We have to match up to the pace which is there, and we are present. We know all the business plans. We are we know business inside out. So to facilitate the business, that's always ingrained in solution designing or process design that we make. So frankly, I mean, I don't have any tricks how to make it. It is part of the solutioning itself.
Okay. Okay. Thanks. Amal, my point, one, the same question, and very briefly, beyond this, I would also like to understand, since you are coming from a large PSU perspective and we have certain perception of how PSUs function. So there, in terms of this culture, that you have to maintain that high level of security, and you are maintaining very sensitive installation also. So without compromising on the security, how do you ensure that performance is also optimized?
Yeah, so the natural way of doing it is embedding security into the mindset of people, so that security comes naturally to them when they're discussing any project, any initiative. Like they discuss how digital things will happen. How digital things will happen, they discuss. At the same time, discuss how securely data can be transferred, how it can be stored, all those aspects also. So now the concept within our organization is, whenever you're talking of any new digital initiative or any new thing that is going to be exposed, or even existing system, when it is going to have a interfacing with other systems, they naturally take into consideration the security aspects to it. And when there is a discussion happening on security, it is also taken into consideration how to ensure that the performance in any way is not suffered when they are doing that security aspect of it. So that is why it's not a single person decision or a CISO decision that happens. It's a joint discussion between business meetings and different stakeholders, right from the lower level up to high level, are involved in this. And that is why the one thing that we have learned and that we are practicing very now is take the user into confidence right from the early stages.
Okay.
So that has helped us a lot. And that is why we are now in a position to, any initiative that they take, they automatically come to us.
So that's great to know, sort of, if I may say, that common perception, changing that common perception about culture in a PSU organization. Neha, I'll come to you this same question, but I'll just expand from a Hero MotoCorp perspective. This balance between not compromising on security and performance, and you are handling with multiple vendors. Even cybersecurity, there are so many OEMs in different aspects. And in a typical automobile manufacturing, I know it's a very competitive, sensitive market where a lot of data and information are very sought after. So how is the challenge working with those multiple vendors, suppliers, that overall extended ecosystem, if I may say, so that cybersecurity and performance are not compromised?
So I think I brought about the mention of architecture review board process earlier. So as a part of the solution and architecture review board process itself, the assessment of third-party risk. So if there is an engagement where we'll have some kind of new vendor relationship being established, wherein we are going to share some PI with them, or if the vendor is going to integrate with any of our subsystems. So there are certain parameters with respect to, or a SOC 2 type 2 report, for example. So with respect to the kind of engagement we are going to have with a particular vendor ecosystem, those aspects are itself baked into the solution review and architecture review board process. And as a part of the toll gate itself, we would ensure that the certain aspects of various audit and governance or the access controls from the vendor ecosystem perspective are already covered as we go further into it. And having said that, there is also a forward-looking view, especially when it comes to data privacy. We deal with a lot of customer data. So we are very cognizant of whenever there is any third-party vendor involvement, that what is the kind of data exactly to the field level that we are going to share with that. So that becomes a critical decision-making parameter as well when it's a forum which has multiple representations. The solution review board would have the enterprise architect, would have people from the enterprise systems to check on the integrations as well. So I think that is how we address the risk from the third party ecosystem being left, unidentified. So that is how we cover for it.
So in an organization like you would be typically using technologies like augmented reality or virtual reality. So those are also generating very sensitive data. So
So I think I'll bring in the mention of emerging technologies, and generative AI is something which everybody is kind of using in some ways. So whenever you're dealing with some emerging technology, the idea would be that do a pilot in a controlled environment with a controlled subset of users, so that you have an end-to-end view of the use case journey. And that is how you can design your attack surface exposure, that with the adoption of emerging technology, what is the attack surface exposure you're creating for yourself, and accordingly institutionalize the controls around it.
Okay, thank you. Sanjeev, now I'll come to you. Again, from your sector perspective, the same question, but I'll add a rider to it. IT services, since most of your clients will be across geographies, and there are a lot of regulatory compliances that need to be confirmed too also. So, having a robust cyber-secure model, not compromising on performance, and conforming to regulations. How do you balance all the three?
Great. Good question. Because I dual had a CISO as well as the data protection officer.
True.
So the security side is much more stable now. The privacy side actually takes much more time nowadays. That's also an area which is still evolving. It's not very, very old. I mean, who would imagine GDPR was first published in 2016 and came to light or became operational in 2018, just about 6 years old. And since then, I mean, all of us would be really pained clicking on those cookie buttons, right? Accept all cookies. And so much dark patterns everywhere trying to fool us as consumers into clicking yes and sharing our data so that they can say consent has been granted. But I go off topic. To respond to the question, yes, for us, both security and privacy risk exist both ways. We getting compromised because of suppliers and partners or clients in certain cases, or our clients getting compromised because something happening in our environment. So to take care of both the risks, of course, then you have to go down to exactly what sort of connection is happening, what sorts of identity-based security controls or identity-based interactions, integrations are provided between all the third parties as well as clients. In many cases, there is B2B or cross-domain trust established. And how do you know what's happening on the other side? Because now you're trusting the entire domain. How do you reduce the attack surface? How do you ensure that only authorized people can come in? And then even when they come in, they only do what they're supposed to do, the principle of least privilege as we call it. And this is where very, very high maturity of the identity security controls are required.
Okay.
And as is known in security circles, identity is the new perimeter. There are functions on-prem, in the cloud. People are working hybrid. Sometimes they're working out of office, they're working out of home, or they could be working across multiple devices at any given point of time. And unlike the traditional legacy security where you had your firewalls and IPS, IDS at the perimeter, none of those work. And we have to rely, I mean, just for example, one of the very common questions auditors are you collecting your firewall logs in your SIM from a security perspective? And I say, why do I need to collect that? Because some standard says you should have firewall logs in your SIM. I said, if somebody is working from home, that is not going through my firewall.
True.
So what is firewall log going to help me? If I have to collect network, I'll collect from something that gives me network visibility across everywhere. BYOD, hybrid working, everything.
True.
And that's where everything again ties back to identity, who's accessing what from where. And then every access, that zero trust approach of making the decision, should this access be allowed or not? And this is where I think very, very strong zero trust based identity security controls where every access is checked, verified, and then a decision made whether to allow or not.
Okay, thanks. So in today's work from anywhere concept, this identity-based management becomes imperative. Alok, a more holistic view on this scenario. You heard about different, not compromising on security, not compromising on performance, handling the extended ecosystem. How do you balance all the challenges?
In our case, the business is of more importance. It will be true for everyone, but in my case, it becomes slightly more critical, maybe. I can take the liberty of saying that. That is why we pick up what is called the risk-based approach, very simple. And when I say risk-based approach, especially in terms of balancing, when I'm talking of risk-based approach, I'm differentiating between data and information. Information is something which is actionable, which can cause deterrents or cause impediments to my operations. Data can be manipulated, yes. So when I have to draw a trade-off, I draw this trade-off between information and data. And using the risk-based approach, at times I'm willing to compromise on cyber security, not OT security, which is a totally different ball game and which you have a different session. So I say, okay, I'm willing to take the risk of some hit somewhere on the IT part, but my business should go through. The train has to run on time. The shipments have to move on time. So I take the risk-based approach. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Baidyanath, your views on this?
So, obviously, being a business leader, if you see, this is very important, that how we are looking into the adaptive security controls, whether we want to command and control business or enable business, that we have to understand. And when we understand that, we always think for the solutions which are going to enable the business. For example, let's say, if I have a policy on email security calling it out that all the password protected files has to be scanned and protected, but there is a team who need those all files, like account team, who is having access to all the banks and all, they are getting all those files in terms of statements, investment. So you have to be basically flexible, right? You have to be adaptive secure. You have to create those adaptive security controls. Those are the business enablers. When we talk about post-pandemic situation, as even Commander Sanjeev clearly mentioned, right? Because identity become the context. There is nothing as such as perimeter which is defining your security, right? Though you have to look into the pertinent thing where you need, for example, unmanaged IoT devices and all those things. For that, you have to interact with a firewall. But your workforces through BYD or laptops and all those things, they are moving here and there. And then you have to look into a control which is going to enable the business. When you think like that I have to remove the legacy VPN with the new edge solutions, which a solution called as SASE offers. And then how you have to design those solutions into your cyber security framework, looking into your cloud assets, your on-prem assets, your other assets in complete in the hybrid mode, right? And how you are going to even see the data which is residing in your SaaS applications also. Because one time we think that for business enablement, these all SaaS applications adoption is important. But at the same time, we forgot that, okay, there are something where data at risk security is also very concerning. So those all scanning in terms of exposure management and all, we have to look into that, right? And once you balance these all things, this is called as zero trust adaptive security controls. So always we have to focus on solutions which are going to help you in getting all the business enablement done, right? And how it is going to be completed when you are trying out the right set of solutions, implementing them with those flexible controls so that your security is not getting compromised and the digital experience monitoring is getting enhanced.
Okay.
So once you are focusing on these all important key parameters that, okay, for example, if CEO is connecting from somewhere, am I monitoring his performance end to end, no matter he is sitting from which location? So
Sure.
that is called the digital experience monitoring, capturing experience end to end for any user, whatever you want. When it comes to the other important controls on the threat prevention, like your steganograph attacks and all those things, like compromising business email compromises, you have to think through that all those CXOs are getting enabled in a risk-free environment. And that's the crux.
Thanks. So before we conclude each panelist, I'll come 30 seconds to each of you. One critical cybersecurity measure which you are going to adopt in your organization, maybe over the next 3 to 4 quarters, starting with you, Mahesh.
Okay, so I'll say one or two, they are actually related. So one thing which we've found, which may become a bottleneck, is the regimentation of cybersecurity operations. We corporate workers, we are not attuned to working in a regimented way. So that is one thing which is focus, and aligned to that, with the complexities and the amount of data which we need to tackle, usage of AI and machine learning in simplifying or in solving some of the issues with respect to various aspects, whether it's a user behavior or our own alerts, logs. So that is something which in the recent times is going to occupy the mind space.
Okay, thank you. Amal.
Yeah, one area that has been of concern to us, and in the new age or all the more, is the phishing and other things now, which have taken a new tone with deepfakes and other coming in. So one project that we are going to take definitely is increasing the user awareness. Although time to time we have been doing phishing campaigns and things like that, and some people have continued to fall prey to it. So this year, at least, our objective is to minimize that thing. Of course, it cannot be totally eliminated, but at least our users, our employees are going to be aware, at least to the extent that only maybe 1 or 2% people only are falling prey to such things. So in that aspect, be it technology or be it awareness campaigns, we are going to do a project on that.
Okay. Neha.
So one thing I would say is quantum of automation in the SOC SIM operations. What could be the measurement improvisation there? And the second part is similar to secure by design, adoption of privacy by design.
Okay. That's again very relevant. Yes, Sanjeev.
On security side, like Neha said, automation. So we have been on the journey for last about 2 years, and that will continue. More and more automation. That's the core focus area. Secondly, we have been on a journey on our zero trust again for about last 2 years. We've worked on some of the pillars like identity, infra, etc. in the past. This year the focus is on network, and then a huge focus on automation and governance of privacy across the organization. So through a privacy management system or something.
Great. The focus on privacy part. Alok.
I will go with Mr. Amal again. This has always been on my top of the list, and it never goes off the top of the list every time I want to put it down. It is user awareness. One is because of the churn that we have, and second is probably by nature we are not very security conscious. Maybe a very sweeping statement, but yeah, that is what I kind of feel. So again, awareness of users on security related issues.
Baidyanath.
Yeah, so my biggest objective this year is to enable the complete business team, primarily OT team, manufacturing team, because we are going a lot of, you can say that, augmentations in our plant ecosystem in terms of adoption of new lines, and just to enable the system with Industry 4.0 and 5.0. So that enablement is very important. So that is my biggest objective this year. And the second important thing is overall DPDPA compliance across the HODs.
Thanks. In fact, we discussed so much about the OT part without discussing. As I said, in the second half, we have a panel discussion. I would make a request to each of you, if you can stay back till the other panel on OT, which we have post-lunch, then basically you can add inputs, and we may have because there also we have a very eminent set of CISO panelists. So that interaction with very high level of business and technical inputs we can. So maybe my request would be to all of you, to, if possible, to stay back for that session also. So before we conclude, we would like to felicitate each of you as the visionary cybersecurity leader. And for the award presentation, I would like to call on stage Gopi Krishna Arora, one of the co-founders of APAC News Network and the director, to hand over the felicitation to each of our panelists.
Of the